Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Excuse me for a moment. My apologies. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. On the panel with me this afternoon is Ms. Diane Knight, and joining by Zoom, and Ms. Gisela Rampel. Our administrative person today is Ms. Crystal Harland, and our assessor is Ms. Jay Flood. My name is Bill Moreski. I am also on the panel and will be chairing this hearing. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board revision. The board revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 on our docket today. Ms. Harlan, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Would you please stand, Madam Assessor? Would you please state your full name?
Lisa J. Flood.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Thank you. Mr. Applicant, would you please stand? Would you please state your full name?
John Bishop.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay, our property on the docket today, the only one is 1459 Corridon. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Ms. Flood, can you begin your presentation, please?
Mr. Chair, file number 24-87, roll number 12-052-479-000. Address is 1459 Corridon Avenue. Roll year 2025 with the reference date of April 1st, 2023. Assessed value of $706,000. We have the parcel used as a commercial store. Leasable area is 2,585 square feet. On pages 2 and 3 are my street view and aerial photos of the subject property. Pages 4 is the request for information. There were no recent sales. My page 5 is my rent comparables. They range from $19 to $23. On my page 6 is our market income. We have the main floor, one main floor premise 11892 at 1,480 square feet at $19.24. We have another main floor premise 34215, 1,104 square feet at $20.55. We had a mezzanine, but I guess it was corrected for premise 27462. Leasable area 1 giving $10.58. The blended overall is $19.80. 5% vacancy. We have 3% expenses, $7 shortfall with a 6.55% capitalization rate. Gives us a value of $706,122, rounded to $706,000. Pages 7 is just the summary. Page 8 is our capitalization chart. Page 9 is the municipal excerpts. Page 10, I took from a previous appeal. The bottom portion of it is where I want to draw the attention is because of the site being contaminated. The last portion that's stating that there was site contamination, it was on the listed impacted sites. A copy can be obtained. Warren was able to share that the phase 2 report on this site was from 1994. At that time, the benzene levels were recorded above the guideline. Since then, in 1999 and again in 2004, the guidelines for safe levels of benzene have been amended. By today's standards, based on the 1994 readings, the subject site would not be above the guidelines and it would pass all of the current standards. I didn't contact anyone from conservation, but I checked on the Manitoba government site for the contaminated sites, and I didn't see it listed on there, but I didn't include that in my brief. Page 11 is improved comparable sales. I tried to keep them all within the same area. They range from $229.61 to $498.34. The subject per square foot I have as $236, On page 12 is my land comparable sales. Again, try to keep them all within the same area. Those ranges from $71.83 to $84.85. The subject based on land area is $64.98 a square foot. Not included in my brief, but when reviewing the property again, there was a sale next door to the subject property at 1465 Corridon within the reference date, May 1st, 2021, for a sale of $640,000. Based on the land area 4,309, that gives us a $148.53. Included in my brief, pages 13 and 14 are recent permits. The first one being there was the fire report. On page 14 is an addition. And then following through pages 15, 16, 17 are the plans that I added for the addition. Pages 19 through to 21 is the income and expense mailer that was submitted. On page 20 is the tenant page. The first tenant being the spa. Leased area is 1,104 square feet with a monthly rent of $1,650, roughly $18 a square foot. The second willow tree for 1,884 square feet with a monthly rent of $3,375 a month, roughly $21.50 cents a square foot. And then I believe that is my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Bishop, do you have any questions on the assessor's presentation, please?
Yes, I do actually. Page 1. You note that the leasable area square footage is 2585. Just kind of wondering how you got to that.
I believe the 2,585 is including the mezzanine space that we have on record as a whole, but not as part of the leasable area for the tenants, as that was amended to
So I'm
one
just kind of
square
wondering
foot.
why on the 1104 square foot, there's a boiler, like a furnace room with a hot water tank, which is not leasable. It's 100 square feet, why that's not mentioned.
For generally for areas like that, we won't include it, but the actual. Is the boiler and mechanical within that space?
Well, it's not a boiler, it's a electric furnace with a hot water tank
Is it in the
and the
basement?
hydro and everything, like the panel and everything.
Is that in the basement or is that on the main
I
floor?
wasn't allowed to build a basement there.
It's on the main floor or the second floor?
The 1104 square feet is only one level.
Okay, I thought the two were main floor
they're separate.
premises.
One's including a storage area upstairs.
Right,
That's why they didn't call it leasable.
yeah, that's,
And then the other building is just one main floor.
but separated into two units.
No, just one. The 1884 is two buildings accumulated. The 1104 square foot one has a furnace room on the main floor. It doesn't have two levels.
Okay,
So why wasn't that deducted?
for that one, I'm not entirely sure, but I can note that down and do a
Okay.
further review.
So that would make it 2485.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look
Yeah.
at plans.
Okay. Number 2, you have pictures. But you don't, like, are these your pictures or did you just take them from somewhere?
Street view.
You took the pictures?
No,
Oh,
I took that
okay.
from street view, yeah.
So you don't, like, they don't really show like some of the buildings not completed?
Right, because I believe the permit is newer, so Street View didn't capture that yet, obviously, and I don't know.
Just wondering, did you take that into consideration on your value?
For the photos, not necessarily, but for the 706,000, that's just how it is if, because I don't believe the construction is completed yet, that would be separate, we would add that after.
Oh, okay, you don't deduct it from the value?
It's not included in the 706,000, we don't have the new construction, the addition added.
Oh, okay, so how much did you deduct if it's not included?
I don't know if we would necessarily deduct or if it would go towards as its increase in space. I'm not sure. I don't know what the value would be after the changes.
Your rent comparables on Academy 520 Academy,
Yes,
it's owner occupied. You have a leased area of 1,900 square feet, but I went on to the city of Winnipeg ARV business details. And the square footage is actually 2,260 square feet. And it's owner occupied, and that works up to $17 a square foot. Not 19, so I don't know how you, or what did you arrive? Yeah, you arrived at $19.
it could be how it was reported. We get a list of the comparables that we go through, but if it's owner occupied, then we can put less weight on that one. That's fine.
I also looked at 534 Waterloo, and the ARV was 32,620. That would make the square foot $18.64, not 2004. That's in the business details.
Right. No, I understand. When I reviewed it, they did seem as though it could be an additional area if they have. Some of them could have.
I'm right near there. There is no additional area. 1700 Gordon, do you know where that is?
Yes,
And what is it?
shopping center,
What's it assessed at?
the building as a whole.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking the building as a whole into consideration, just the tenants.
But it's assessed, these are rent comparables, though, right?
Yes,
Comparables?
so I'm using the rents within it, not the value of the property as a whole.
But wouldn't
It's-
the rents be more higher in a shopping center than a small retail market?
They could, my thought process was just to try and get an idea of what rental rates are within Oregon or the area.
So why didn't you go? If that was the case, why didn't you go in the surrounding area? Like, there's other buildings there that you could have used.
Sometimes they're not true net leases, and sometimes they are owner occupied,
Which ones?
depending. Just,
Because I've been there for 30 years and I know everybody there. No one owns any of the buildings.
I'm just explaining why sometimes we don't go in the immediate vicinity.
Okay, so the Greek market, 1438 Gordon. That's wrong. They enlarged the Greek market. It's got two sections to it now. You only have indicated 1,200 square feet. It's actually another 1,000 square feet added on that. And all these tenants have been there for 25, like 15, 20, 25 years. All these tenants.
I didn't inspect them personally, but for the 1438 Gordon, it's not the market that I used as the tenant. It was a different tenant.
Well, yeah, you use the Heights Saloon, which is 1436.
1438 was another salon spa type.
So there, the Greek market took that over.
But that is what was reported for that address, is they had a location and they took over another unit.
Okay, anyway, do any of these have properties contain any contamination?
As far as I know, no. Again, my thought process was if the one document is saying that the levels are safe, that I didn't use that into consideration as a whole.
Okay, under the subject property market income, how did you arrive at 6.5% cap rate?
That one was model driven.
Okay, but you don't have any other properties to compare that to on the cap rates?
Not for the cap.
So why don't you guys use comparable cap rates when doing your market incomes? Because you won't release any, you wouldn't release me any cap rates on the surrounding properties. So how am I supposed to gain access to cap rates on market comparables? When you're allowed to do that, but I'm not. So if you have me at 6.5, what properties are in my and your comparables are at the same?
In my brief, I did not provide any comparables for cap rates.
Yeah. Okay, down to the contamination report. Do you know what the guidelines are? For like what the guidelines are for what? Because there's like hundreds of guidelines for contamination sites.
Yes, I believe there is, and I'm not familiar with them, so I can't.
So
I
I
want to
would,
speculate.
because when I bought the property, not knowing that I was actually liable for contamination. If the contamination migrates to surrounding neighborhoods, I'm actually liable, and I didn't know that at the time when I bought the property. So in
Got a
2000.
question there, Mr. Bishop? You got a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta present it as a question.
Yeah, you're asking questions right now. You're not presenting.
Sorry.
But if you got a question about the
Sure.
contamination to the assessor, you can frame it that way.
Okay, do you have, what was the criteria for this land contaminated site originally?
That I'm not sure.
Okay, it was a criteria 3, which is, there's 3 levels of criteria. There's 1 being very minimal, 2 being in between, you could say bad to worse, I guess. and 3 being highly contaminated. When they readjusted the criteria, they put me down to a 2. So the only thing that it meant was it took the liability issues from me, not the contamination. The land is still contaminated. And I have a document.
Okay, you can go into your contamination issue that you have in your presentation,
Okay,
but if you can just confine your questions to what the assessor has presented.
okay, we'll go into the improved comparable sales. I'd like to start off with C2 zones. How much of a difference between a C1 and C2 is there?
The difference, I'm not entirely sure, but I based it on that if the subject property is a retail store and we're having it as a C2, that C1 can be C2 or C1. That was my thought process on choosing based on the zoning.
Yeah, because C2 is C1 is limited to certain things and C2 is limited to more things. So they're more industrial compared to a retail. So they're subject to actually they can actually build high rises where a C1 can't build high rises. Or they can build a shopping center and a small C1 can't. In my view, that would actually, when it comes to comparing your land sales, would justify an increase in price for a C2 versus a C1. I figured out 916 Gordon Avenue. You're saying the sale price in 2021 was 579,000?
Yes, that's what we have, yes.
But yet when I went on to the assessed market values in 2021, and they sold it after the 2021 new assessment, it was assessed at 446. And they sold it for 579,000. And then in 2025, the assessed came back at 465,000. So it's 110,000 less than what it actually sold for.
Okay, we're not going to talk about assessments, other assessments, Mr. Bishop.
Okay, I'm just trying to show that the board that just because of a sale price doesn't mean it would be the same as an assessed value. Their arrival at that assessed value isn't based on sales. That's what I'm trying to show here.
What is your question pertaining to the comparable sales in terms of the market value? Is that what you're trying to ask about?
Yeah, the sales don't justify the assessed value. Actually,
Okay, but we're not talking about the assessed values of the comparables. We're not talking about them. Right? Okay, you understand that?
But when you do your ARVs, your average rental values, to get to 579,000 would put your average rental value up. So your rental per lease would be higher than versus an assessed value at 459,000. Would it not?
Mr. Bishop, we're not going to talk about the assessments of other properties.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 1103 Gordon Avenue. You have square footage at 1,728 square feet. Do you realize that the square footage is 2828?
For the building area?
Yeah.
That's what we have, but I could do a further review.
It has a full basement, and for some reason, they're not taking into consideration.
No, for building areas like that, we won't take the basement into consideration. It's above grade for the building areas. When it comes to for like sale prices and assessments, generally we won't include a basement space as the whole building space.
So you think
There's
that,
other things that are taken into consideration as generally a basement space. There isn't always the option to have a separate entrance. like there would be for a main floor. So the 1728, I believe, would be the main floor, not, we wouldn't include the basement if the 28 is including the basement.
So if they're leasing the basement out to a retail store, that wouldn't be included.
Not as the building area as a whole, depending on the type of basement, the finish, condition, everything. We could have it assessed for business assessment, but I'm not sure.
So,
That one I can't speculate as it's not the subject property and I don't know entirely for the basement.
okay. Do you realize I wasn't allowed to put a basement in my building? When I built it?
I was not aware of that, no.
So do you think that's unfair that my neighbor gets to rent out his basement and not get assessed on it, but I do? I can't build a basement, but I pay more. Do you think I'm comparable to them? Doesn't that seem a little unfair?
I mean, honestly, there's other things that are taken into consideration. You could have a basement, but it might not be as an amenity. It could be just for the main floor or the owner, if they're owner occupied. If it's just storage, there's other things to take into consideration. If you don't have a basement, your main floor and mezzanine space or whatever, the quality of your building could be superior than another that has a basement. It's unfortunately that there's so many things to take into consideration. It's hard to answer that as yes or no. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I guess, like, okay, all these sites, are these comparables here, have they been contaminated?
As I did not look into. That aspect wasn't necessarily taken into.
And the land comparables, have any of these been listed? And the impact sites?
Those I did not, again, because looking at on my page 10, saying that it would pass all current standards, checking the government site for impacted and contaminated, not seeing it listed there, I didn't use that as something to consider when looking at my other comparables.
But what was the standards then?
That I'm not sure.
So then how could you say that? If you don't know what the standards are, how can you say you didn't take that into consideration?
As far as I know, for the contamination aspect of it, we don't have it as part of as an adjustment on the property. It was removed many years ago. And following this and the site, like I said, my general knowledge of it was to use other properties, not using the contamination or the impacted as a criteria for my comparables.
Did you realize I could get financing on this land because of the contamination?
I was unaware.
Yeah. The permit, the building, one of my units had a fire. Originally, we were gonna put up a building, but that's all been squashed because the zoning wants me to drill 3 holes. It's gonna cost me $30,000 to check for silt or whatever they check for, so I'm not building the building because the price is too up, a little bit too much for me to expand.
Are you,
So that's not going through.
this is about the 1370 square foot addition?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So that one, it's canceled?
I haven't got my money back yet, but
Okay, we still have it as issued.
okay, I'll start my presentation.
Okay, Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. Just in regards to your page 10, where it says, Warren was able to share the last phase 2 recorded on site 1994. Since then in 99, again in 2004, the guidelines for safe levels of benzene have been amended by today's standards based on the 1994 readings. The subject site should not be above the guidelines and it would pass all current standards. So that means there is no anything wrong with this property. There's no conditions of this phase 2 on this property at all. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of it.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rempel, any questions?
I do. I'm looking at the street view that you presented as part of your evidence. And you indicate on the first page that there's 3 buildings that are part of this property.
Yes.
And can you show me where the 3 buildings are?
I can't speak for certain, but I believe if you look at page 2, that might be easier to follow, where it says 1459, I believe that's one of them, and then on the left, I have like in front of what looks like the greenhouse, I believe that's another part of the building. And then potentially on page 3, if you're facing it, the little part on the right, but for how the buildings are set up, not having it in front of me, I don't know entirely.
So of the 3 buildings, was the building that the building permit was issued for considered to be one of them? Or is that a 4th building?
On my page 2, the way that I read the plans was where the white, I think it's a greenhouse. I believe that's where the addition was going to be.
Okay, I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can verify that if you want.
You can do that as part of your presentation.
Oh, okay, sure.
Thank you.
Page 20. Those 2 tenants on page 20. You have the area there, 1104 for Spa Botanica. And is that 1884 for Willow Tree?
That's how I read it, yeah.
That adds up to 2,988. You have 2585. Can you explain that discrepancy?
I think that's taking into consideration the whole gross area. On my page 1, the gross floor area is 2,988. And then our leasable area is the 2,585. Potentially that could be where the heater, the mechanical portion is that we are taking it into consideration. As based on the mailer, then it would appear that we're under assessing one of the willow tree. As we have it as 1480. But I cannot say for sure. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The 2,988 is the gross floor area.
Sorry, repeat that.
Sorry, the 2,988 square feet is what we have as the gross floor area.
But you're only counting the net floor
Yeah,
area in your calculations.
We are using. One of the tenants is 1,480 square feet at $19.24. And then the other main floor is 1,104 square feet at $20.55. And then we did have a mezzanine space, but that was amended to 1 square foot for $10.58. And a blended of $19.80.
Okay. On page 19, the income and expense mailer. There's no income reported on there. Wondering if any comments on that, or is it not an issue? What does that mean?
I don't know for sure. That could be something that I could ask Mr. Bishop for further clarification on.
Okay,
That's how we received it.
okay, I just like to confine it to you at this point. When you get an income and expense mailer, you require that from the owner, correct?
The income and expense mailers are, yes, they're required, as if they are not submitted, they could be subject to non-compliance if they do appeal. It does help us with our decisions with valuing, using the outside sources provided by the owners. It's not uncommon for some areas to not be entirely filled out, and we sometimes have to do the math and go back or guesstimate to the best of our ability or contact if needed. But the mailer that I submitted is how it was received.
Okay.
It was not altered by us.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious to how that process works. Fair enough. So why did you include, the crux of your evaluation is on the income approach, correct?
Yes.
So why did you choose to provide, land and building sales?
I feel our value,
Comparables. Sorry.
is fair at the 706,000.
Mhm.
So with the rent comparables and just to include for sales that happened in the area, whether they were vacant and then added new or renovated or however, just to give an idea of what the rates are going within the area to show that I feel it is within line and I feel it's fair. But we are basing it on the income.
And that's $300 a square foot, the building and land together. And what is the subject property? What does that, sorry, yeah. Let me tell you where I'm going. The subject assessment per square foot is 236 from the building. And I think it's 64 or 65 for the land, which makes it about $301 a square foot. So I don't know, have you done the calculation and how that compares to what you provided on the income approach?
Not in comparison to that, just using, I might not be understanding your question. For the improved comparables, I'm basing it on the $706,000 against the building area of $2,988. And that's what gives me the $236.28. For my land comparables, again, using 706,000 against the 10,772 square feet for the land area with the $64.98. And I just used that to show that I feel we are within range of what other sales are going for within the area. And some of them are retail stores, some of them were vacant land.
Right, so you were able to, what the subject assessment was on the land, and you have that information, and then the building?
I was basing it on the 706,000, just showing that value I feel is fair and justifiable with our rent comparables as well with the improved and the land comparables. So my calculations are based on 706,000.
Okay. And the permits, can you just say why you decided to attach these permits?
One was the fire permit. It was inspected, I believe, this past June 5th, I believe. I don't believe any changes were made based on my review. I added the permit for the addition, just to show that if there is an issue with the property, that there is still a permit potentially for an addition on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And that potentially that if, because I believe the construction declared value was $175,000. So regardless of what our assessment is, there could be a change if the new construction was completed and after we added it, but as Mr. Bishop indicated, that permit is no longer being followed through with, so that one obviously does not necessarily count now if they're not doing the addition.
Okay. I have no further questions then.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bishop, you may begin your presentation.
Do you want me to clarify the square footage there on the buildings or?
Absolutely, yeah, you can do that if you like. Yeah.
Just so that you know, there's 3 units. One was 528 square feet, the other one was 1,300 square feet or 1,356, those combined. So the wall was opened, and so it's 1 unit now, so it's 1,884 square feet. And then unit C is basically on its own, it's a 1 level. And it is 1,104 square feet.
What the total then is for you?
So the upper
Right.
level, for the 1,350 square feet is used for storage. And that's why they didn't include it in the leasable area. But they forgot to mention that on the main floor, there's also a boiler room that's not leasable, which is not included in that, and also 1,104 square foot unit C. There's no area taken off from that either for the furnace room. Just to kind of verify that. Okay, you want me to go ahead or?
So what is the total area that you think is leasable?
Well, based on the Board of Revisions, changes for the past 20 years, they've agreed that the leasable area is 24. What is it? 25. Sorry, where are we here? 2584, but they don't mention the. It's actually 84 square feet and 11 in unit C that is not leasable.
Sorry, the total square footage is 2,584?
Yeah, that's not minusing the furnace room in the unit C of 1,100.
Okay, so the city has 2,585 leasable square feet, so we're fine.
Well, the Board of Revisions, that was the Board of Revisions who made that decision.
Yeah, I'm trying to ask you, Mr. Bishop, what you believe is the leasable area.
Oh, I believe it's 2484. Or 2580, 2504. Because there's 80 square feet of furnace room in unit C.
2504. Okay, so we got a discrepancy of 81 square feet then.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on, please.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the whole thing here. Row year 2008, reference year 2003, I had a 1,350 square foot assessed value. Building assessed value was 267. It was revised to 185,000 by the board.
Okay, this page is all your previous assessments and revisions by the board, is that correct?
Yeah.
Carry on to the next page. We're not going to consider that evidence. Previous board orders are not part of this hearing. Okay, please.
But the contamination criteria is.
Okay. Then
That
go to
letter was presented to the board many times.
contamination issue is fine.
Yeah, that was
But what you're presenting right now on this page, we cannot entertain at this hearing. It's previous board orders, and we're not going to consider previous board orders.
Then how to pass comparables have any, interest in this, then if you're not gonna look at all my evidence, then why have any evidence at all?
Well, if you have comparable rents or
Well,
similar information,
I think it's important that to show that the board has ruled in my favor for the last 20 years.
okay, we're not gonna carry on about it. We're not gonna look at previous board orders in this hearing. Okay,
Okay, can you give me, like, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but can you give me where it says that this can't be used in your legislation as evidence? I'm not trying to be, but I truly believe it's a value in my evidence. Can you show me where it shows that it can't be?
we are not looking at previous evidence. We're looking at your evidence right now and the assessor's evidence. We're not looking at evidence in other hearings. So that's why we're not gonna look at previous board orders.
Okay, so I can't use the roll year 2025 or 2023 then? You're saying? As evidence?
2025 is this cycle, correct?
Okay. I still would like to see the legislation where it says I can't use this as evidence. This, to me, is ridiculous. I've never had a problem presenting this in the past board hearings, never. So, can you give me the reason why?
I told you the reason why already.
Well, why?
We're not looking at evidence in previous hearings. We're looking at evidence in this hearing.
Can
You
tell
are
me
giving, okay,
why the
you are
board-
giving us information on previous hearings, which we have not heard or seen the evidence on. That's why we can't consider it. Okay, please carry on.
Well, I'm not really happy with that, to be quite honest with you. I would like to
Okay.
get, I
Okay,
would
fine.
like to get a legislation where it says that I can't include this in my evidence.
If I may, when you asked about the capitalization rates and I emailed you saying that we cannot disclose those to the public. I also did send a link where it showed that we cannot compare assessments as evidence.
That has nothing to do with what I'm talking with right now. I'm talking about evidence that I presented to the board
Yes,
for the last
with
20
assessments,
years.
it is in the legislation that the board does not consider past assessments as evidence.
I'm not saying what the past assessment, I'm just showing what the board revised their decisions to. It's got nothing to do with the evidence. I'm not showing you, you can't see the evidence.
My understanding that you were asking where in the legislation that it says.
In the Board of Revisions hearing, where does it say that I can't present my evidence?
As your evidence being past assessments.
It's not a past assessment, it's a past decision. It doesn't show the evidence. It doesn't come with evidence. I'm just showing what's
Mr. Bishop, Mr. Bishop,
for 20
okay,
years.
let me interrupt this discussion that you're having with the assessor, please. We are not going to look at previous board orders in this hearing.
Okay, well then I refuse to continue without, I want to see something in writing that says I can't use this as evidence.
Yeah, I'm not going to provide that now, and
Well, then I don't know what to say. Because I'm not,
what do you want to do? You want to carry on, or is that the
well, I'm
end
not
of your
gonna
presentation?
continue unless I'm allowed to provide
Okay.
it.
Okay, then your presentation is complete then?
Where
What
does,
value
in
is
the
he
legislation,
asking?
can you provide that to me right now?
You can do verbal on whatever you want on your contamination issue, rent comparables, whatever you want. But that first page that you've covered so far, we're not going to look at that information in previous board orders. And that's as far as you've gotten is the first page. So I don't know what else you have here. So, is that all about board orders now? Is
So
that
are
what
you
you're saying?
saying that I can't show my revision orders, like what they changed the values to? Like this is all garbage or what?
It's not part of this hearing. It won't be, you could, yeah, we won't entertain it. We won't look at it. We won't consider it. So it'd be just a complete waste of time.
Bill, is that in that big book that we have? Does it say in there that previous orders we can't look at or can't discuss? It says in there somewhere, does it not?
Okay, well, if you, we could
If
go in
that's what it-
camera. If you want to have a discussion in camera, we can, yeah. But I'm not gonna, let's not discuss.
Okay,
it
so can
in
we do
this
that
room.
so that we can
Okay.
give him something?
Okay, let's go in
Like
camera.
I said, I would like to see something where, you know,
Yeah, I think.
if you're gonna tell me something, I'd like to see something.
But before we break though, I'm just gonna like, the rest of your presentation, if you can just tell me what else is on. I see you have like 20 pages or something. So before we go in camera and discuss, what else have you got in there that you're going to present?
Well, do you not have a copy?
Yes, yeah, we have.
Yes, but I want you to explain what you're going to present.
Well, I'm showing a building cost, what it cost me to build the building.
Okay, okay. What
I'm
else?
showing market rents.
Market rents,
Yep,
are they based on assessments? Assessments of other properties?
I'm doing market rents. Which have business details from the city of Winnipeg.
What do you mean business details?
The average rental values.
Is that from business assessments?
Yeah,
Then that's another assessment. Can't look at assessments, compare assessments as well.
but it shows the ARV, the per square foot, the rental per square foot.
That's an assessment. So you have your materials, you have your contamination issue,
Is there anything else I can present? or
and
no?
whatever, however else you want to frame your value. How do you, what you think it's worth, or rent, or I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You cannot use previous board orders, and you cannot compare assessments. Use other assessments.
Did the assessor not use comparables, rent, sales?
She used market rents,
Yeah,
Market sales.
market sales, and rents. Yeah.
and I can't,
Yes, but you're basing it on assessments.
no, I'm not, I'm basing it on the average rental value per unit. Which,
From an assessment, right?
how do you think they arrive at an assessed value? They do base it on per square foot, per square foot.
Okay, we're
That's
gonna go
how
in
they arrive.
camera, okay? We're gonna go in camera.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll take us offline. If you could just give us a few moments, please, Mr. Bishop.
Okay, we are back in order. Yeah, so the matter has been considered, and yes, that's a policy that we do not compare assessments, previous assessments, or not, sorry, assessments of other properties. You can compare your previous assessments if you want, this assessment to any previous assessments that you had. Assessments of other properties we won't consider, and neither will we consider previous board orders. And that's our policy, and we will carry on. And that you can carry on that basis. You have other evidence that you want to present, and we can do that. So if you're not pleased with that, the whole process, you can appeal to the Manitoba Municipal Board.
Yeah, no, I have before. Okay, I'm gonna go through and you tell me if I can use it or not. I believe based on my evidence, the assessed value of 706,000, can I use that? My value? The assessed value?
Yes,
For 2025, reference year 2023 is unfair if you follow the guidelines under definitions and the Legislation Act, Part 518, presumption of validity. An assessment is presumed to be properly made and assessed value to be fixed at a fair and just amount, where the assessed value bears a fair and just relation to assessed values of other assessed properties. Examples of fair and just: surrounding property, size of building, commercially built materials, residentially built materials, market rent per square foot, types of tenants, length of lease, vacancy, condition of building, market values per square feet, capitalization rates. Can I use capitalization rates comparisons or no?
If you got it from other assessments, then it's not gonna have any validity, right? Is that how you arrived at your capitalization
Oh, I'm
rate?
just asking, that's all. Yeah, it was taking other cap rates from other locations and comparing it to mine.
Using their assessments, is that correct?
No, just their cap rates.
No, but you got the cap rate by using the assessed information, is that correct? How did you get the cap rates?
I figured it out based on the rental values
From assessments?
from the business detail, not the assessed value, the business details, the average rental values.
What do you mean by business details? Is that the
That's
business
different from
assessment?
assessed values. That's average rental value. So
Yeah, from the
per
business
square foot,
assessment?
like, it's business details. It's not assessed values. It has nothing to do with the value. It's just the average rental value, what they're getting for rent per square foot. It's
Okay, and how are you getting that information?
through the city.
Which information though? Is it from assessments?
It's from business details. So,
Okay, carry on.
okay. The next page was just definitions and legislations in regards to what I said here. I just have a question under this definition. And this is from the legislation of the government of Manitoba, I assume, where it says assessed is presumed to be properly made and the assessed value to be fixed in a fair and just amount, where the assessed value bears a fair and just relation to assessed values of other assessable properties. That's the definition in legislation. So why you're saying I can't use this definition? Is that what you're saying? Or
Well, you're presenting that and you're asking me a question on why you can't present that, and I think I've spent enough time explaining that. All right.
looking under the legislation though, where it shows us how assessed values are arrived. So I know you're saying one thing, but the legislation is saying another thing. I'm just asking that. Okay, so the subject property is located in River Heights area. It is surrounded by residential homes and retail shops. The property consists of 2984 square feet, which was designed to look like a house and built like a home. This building design was consistent with the demand of the City of Winnipeg Planning Department. The frontage of this property is on Niagara, even though the address indicates differently. This challenge was challenging when applying for permits. The zoning bylaws requires a setback from Corden Avenue of 25 feet having this setback really hurts the retail business that's been leasing from the past years. The property is surrounded by a fence and the parking area consists of gravel. The front end building is finished with recycled brick and sides and back are finished with stucco. Some of the stucco has not been finished. The roof consists of asphalt shingles. The doors and windows are PVC and the frame is 2x6 spruce. The building is residentially built. My total cost to build was $135,000. And I indicate the evidence what I paid for McMahon and Yates or McDermott lumber. There's some expenses that I put in there. I have building and tenant comparisons. The buildings. Can I use that or?
What page is that?
I don't have it marked. It's right after the McDermott lumber.
21? 21?
It's 1103 Gordon Avenue.
Yes, yes.
It uses that in her as her evidence.
1103 Corridon.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to say about it?
Okay, 1103 Gordon Avenue is a one-unit building with a one-story commercially built. This location consists of 2820 square feet in total. The main floor is 1730 with the basement totaling 1100. The tenant's been at this location for 22 years. This has value, and I guess I can't use this as value. I guess, is that all? All I can say is that the assessed value increased by 0.5% from 2025 to 2023. 1436 Gordon Avenue has 4 units. It's now 3 because the Greek market expanded. They've been there for 27 years. This building has a total plan area of 6,000 square feet. The area is 10,000 square feet. The assessed value has increased by 0.5% from 25 to 23. 1431 Gordon Avenue. This location has 4 units originally and then turned into 3 units. This is the Bonfire Bistro, if you are familiar with that area. This one-story building is commercially built with long-term tenants ranging from 22 to 27 years. The plan area consists of 5,800 square feet. It also has a full basement, not included in their assessment. And their assessed value in 2025 has decreased over 126,000. 1459 Gordon, or I'm sorry, 1103. I don't know if you, yeah, so I presented 1103 Gordon.
Yes.
Like the assessed value, but I guess I can't use that, right?
Right.
That's not good. Okay, so here's the so all these assessed values I have here are no good.
They don't have any weight with us.
Okay, what about my list of comparable market rents? It's right
Do
after.
you have the actual market rent that they're getting in those properties? Do
Yeah,
you have that information?
well, I know most of them.
Well, you have the information, documented information on what they're paying.
Lease
You have
agreements?
lease agreements or whatever
Who's gonna give me a lease agreement?
I don't know, but do you have that information?
I don't have lease agreements, no. I have the business details. It mentions no, it says business assessment role.
Business assessment role. So that's an assessment, correct?
Not of the value. That's the average rental value in the
That's an assessment, correct? Madam Assessor, is that an assessment, the annual rental value in a business assessment?
I'm talking to you, Madam Assessor.
Sorry, can you
Yeah.
repeat the question?
The annual rental value in a business assessment, that's an assessed value, is that correct?
Yes, those are the values that we use for determining property taxes, not market evidence.
Right, so it's not a market rent,
No,
Correct.
it is our internal information.
and that is the information that you're using, right, Mr. Bishop?
I'm using business details, yeah, where they arrive at their assessed values. The city. This is how they arrive at their assessed values, right here.
Yeah.
Off
So
of it.
that's an assessment then, correct?
Assessment of what?
That's an assessment
It's an average rental value assessment. Not
by
a
the city,
value assessment.
by the city, correct?
Yeah,
So that's an assessment.
okay. Where do they arrive at these amounts? From leases, don't they? Anybody?
Yes. So I am not an assessor, so I'm not going to answer for the assessor. How they arrive at their values.
Okay. Then how do they know that they're paying in her?
Okay.
Evidence, she shows what they're getting per square foot, how would she know?
Am I allowed to answer?
Yeah. Yeah, you can answer that, yeah.
For, again, for the comparables in my evidence, that is lease information that we receive from the owners. It is not information that we have internally for the purpose of property taxes. So pages like this that you received through our website, that's just for the purpose of property taxes, the annual rental values that we derive for business and for property assessments. They're not necessarily what lease agreements are. We take other things into consideration. There are other factors. It's not necessarily what we have here is 100% what they are paying in terms of market value.
I don't understand it, but whatever. So their leases could be less than. Their market rent, their square footage could be less.
It could be less, it could be more. It depends. I can't, it's not a blanket, I can't make a blanket answer for that, unfortunately.
So my assessed market value comparisons, can't be used either, I'm not sure. It gives you the square footage for the land.
If I can just ask you this, like the objective of your presentation was to come up with a value of your own, correct?
Yes,
That's what you're trying to do, right? And by trying to do that, you tried to come up with a rental rate, correct?
I'm trying to come up with an average rental value in their surrounding area.
Right. And you did that by comparing assessments of other properties. Is that correct?
Well, I know what some people are paying around there, so I've been there for a while, so. I don't have proof, like I don't have a lease agreement. Like I know, the Greek garden was.
So if you want to present it that way, what you believe people are paying in your area, yeah, fine, go ahead.
Okay, well, it's all put in my evidence here, though, so I don't I have to go through all my evidence to give you, like, I would have to go back and figure it all out.
Mhm.
I can't just come up with numbers. It's all in here already.
Got it.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of the applicant?
Yes.
I am wondering, I think what the chair is trying to say is you came up with what you think is a fair value for your property. Is
Well,
that right?
I-
By doing these comparisons of, okay, so what do you think a fair value for your property is?
I was getting to that. It's all,
Okay,
this is everything and shows you why my land is devalued compared to my other property
okay,
or in the surrounding areas. And then when the assessor uses properties that are in the surrounding area, they're going out of reach. And that's all I'm trying to, all this evidence is comparing me to other locations in the area.
understood.
And based on that definition in the legislation, that's how they arrive at assessed values. So that's why I'm having an issue with why I can't use this evidence.
So what do you think is a fair assessed value for your property?
I'm, like I said, I'm in my. I did a market rental value based on my property, and I based it on the market rent of $14.75. Based on my lease agreement. Well, they have my lease agreement. I don't know why they don't present them. But if you look at page 8, Spa Botanica, they're paying me gross rent of $2,200. And you minus the taxes, I'm receiving around $10 a square foot. For that ARV. That doesn't, so when you do your ARV and you do an average rental value on it. It doesn't come to 700,000, I can tell you that.
What does it come to, sir? What do you think is a fair value for your property?
Well, our market rental value based on $14.75 a square foot. And that's basing it on 2584, what the board in the past have said. Gives me an ARV rental value of $38,114.
That's on page 42, correct?
I didn't mark the page, but it says 10 on the top.
Yeah.
Market
Okay, it's
rental.
on page 42, panel members, page
Yeah.
42.
Got it.
Yeah, so I put based on following the guidelines, I believe in fairness, the market rental value using the board of revisions. Past recommendations on the plan area per square foot should be $14.75 a square foot. 2584 plan area. 1475 times 2584 equals 38,114 ARV. Proposed income approach summary is the 1475 total square foot 2584 gross income 38,114. Vacancy allowance 7%. Which is 2,667 gives me a net of 35,447. Management fees 5%, 1,772. Other shortfall 2%, 708 and 1,018. Or other 2% shortfall 1,018. A net operating income of 31,949. The capitalization rate at 8%. This is my 8%. Because I know in the area they're all around 7.5%. And if you look at what they say in the definition of cap rates are based on tenants. They're based on amount of years of the tenants, building, what it costs for the building. All these buildings that I've used comparables and the assessor has, they're all commercially built. None of them are residentially built like my property. My tenants have been there for one's 5 years and the other 7 or 8 years. So when you look at all that, I think that's a pretty fair market. market rental value and the cap rate, well, even the board has agreed with me that the assessor's cap rates are always lower. Cap rates of, I'm getting a lower cap rate than a shopping center. Shopping centers are getting a 7% cap rate. I'm getting a 6.5%. I should be at 8% cap rate, not 6.5.
So according to your calculations, then, you think $499,000 is a fair
Well,
assessment for your property?
based on my capitalization rate, it's 399, 362. But I mean, I'd be willing to go
Well,
with the board of
You said
revisions.
your net operating income is 31,949, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and then you wanted a cap rate of 8%?
yep.
So if I calculate that, I get $499,000. Is
I
that not what you get?
No, it's 399. You get 31,949 divided by 8%.
I get $499.
Oh, did I screw up here?
I get $499.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, somebody else could do
I'm not
that
using
for
it
me
wrong.
too.
I'll do it, yeah.
Well, then I miscalculated.
$399 I get.
$399?
Yeah.
My error then.
But I mean, I'm willing to go with the board's revisions calculation from the last time, at 453. I don't have an issue with that. At a 7.5% cap rate. I'm okay with that, but I'm not having gone to the contamination part yet. As you can see, the reason for adjustment, I don't know if you want to look at that. You probably don't. I presented the capitalization method. It shows you exactly how assessments are valued at, and I believe my building is really not even comparable to most of those commercial buildings. It's half the price to build it. My tenants are not as much. My rental income is less, and that's not even including the contamination. I couldn't even get financing on the property. I have to get the previous owner to finance me. And then take a mortgage out of my residential home in order to finance it. So I want to get to the contamination part because this is the most important part. Where he doesn't know what the guideline means, and
What page are you looking at now?
the contamination report that I presented.
That where it says executive summary or environmental site assessment?
Yeah.
Which page are we looking at?
There is no page number on it. There you go.
So which page is it in your presentation?
It says page 9, I believe.
Where did I can't find it?
Environmental site assessment?
Is
Yeah.
that
Okay,
it?
I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't find that though.
Does anybody have the PDF page number?
There is no PDF page number. It's just page 9. He's got written in.
Yeah, where
On
it is,
top.
where is it on our PDF?
It's
Page.
almost at the bottom. Almost at the end. It's right at, so where he had the market rent value, it's 2 pages up from there.
Yeah, page 41.
Oh, here we go, I got it.
Oh, sorry, it says page 9 at the
Yeah,
top.
evidence page 9, it says. So ID Engineering did the testing back in, I believe it was 1999, I think. Here's that. It was the same year. Anyway, it was around 2000. The assessment site is within a residential commercial area. The residential properties bound the site to the north and west. Underground utilities border the site to the east, southwest. Shallow groundwater at the assessment site appears to be between 2 and 4 meters in depth. However, it does not appear to be potential use. The site was assessed to be a level 1 risk site based on that. So I mixed up the numbers. 3 is the lesser of the risk. Number 1 being the most. There was 12 boreholes were advanced in the assessment site depths between 5 and 6 meters. Organic vapor readings on soil samples collected measured between then 1 to 89% LEL. Soil samples submitted to the laboratory for analysis of benzoin, toluene. So there wasn't just benzene, there's other chemicals in there. The total extractable hydrocarbons, THC or TEH, total petroleum, hydrocarbons, and lead net with the criteria set for a level 3 risk site. Monitoring wells were installed. 3 of the 3 boreholes. Organic vapors measured in the wells ranged from 1 to 93%. I'm sure this doesn't mean anything to you guys. A water sample collected from the well within good recovery was submitted to the laboratory for analysis of BTX, TEH, TPH, and lead. This sample was reported to exceed the guidelines for freshwater aquatic life and total lead, benzene, and toluene. A comparison between the laboratory results, organic headspace measurements, and the observation made during drilling and monitoring activities indicated hydrocarbon contamination in possibly 9 of the boreholes and migrating predominantly. So the migrating is a very important word here. Predominantly in a southeast direction, although not restricted, the hydrocarbon contamination appears to be predominantly within fine discontinuity, but extensive silt layers located at approximately 3 meters in depth. Contamination in the soil does not appear to extend beyond the pore. So what they're saying is, like, the site is contaminated, but it's migrating. And so for a level 3 risk, which my site was indicated as, what they did back in 2004, and that's the letter that you received, is they changed the criteria to a 2, which is in between a 1 and a 3. And the criteria is in regards to liability issues of the migration. So what they said is not the owner who's responsible for the so where I'm looking for remediation. It's the actual contaminator, which was the service station. I can't remember who it was, but it doesn't mean that the owner doesn't have to clean the site up. All it is a liability issue. If I was to ever excavate in there, I would have to remove that soil and I would have to contain it in bins. It would cost me $300,000 to $500,000, and you can verify this through the government if you want. There was a gas station where the dental office on Cordon was. A good friend of mine was the one who actually does gas station. He services all the pumps. He installs them, takes them apart, and that particular site cost them between $300,000 and $500,000, and that's to remove it and contain it in containers. They had to wait quite a few years before they could even build on it. There's another site located on Waverly and Grant, the north southwest corner. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Grant and Waverly.
Yes.
It's been vacant for 25 years. They didn't dig it. They decided not to dig it up. Instead, they vented it. Well, they've been waiting for 20 years. They still can't develop it. My site has vapor contamination all over it. If I was to disturb the soils, I would have to do the same as they do. And that's not possibly affordable to me. And that is a huge what would I say the word is? Against my assessed value. In fact, when I went for financing to the bank said, even if you put a building on that property, the property is only worth what you paid for it. And I paid 100,000 for that property. That's all the bank, they wouldn't even finance me. Even with the building on it. So, I mean, she says in her report, it says guidelines, but it doesn't tell you that only relates to liability issues. It doesn't relate to the remedy, to fixing the issues. That's all I can say about the contamination. And I feel like I've been doing this for 20 years, and that report was established a long time ago to the Board of Revisions. They've looked into it, and they've come to the same conclusion every time. I've been here every 2 years since 2003. That's all my evidence.
Okay, Ms. Flood, any questions on the application?
Just a couple, thank you. Just regarding your contamination, your executive summary, you were saying that this is from 1999, roughly? The document?
No, well, 2004, I can't remember. I marked it down in my thing here, but I'm all lost now.
Okay, have you had the soil tested since then? And since owning the property, have you tested the soil?
Well, I haven't, hired a company to test it, but I dug holes for my fence. And the smell that comes through there, and that's only going 10 feet. The smell that comes out is almost unbearable.
Okay, but no,
Do you know what it would cost to dig a hole? Well, you know how many holes they would have to dig? You know what it would cost me?
I'm not sure, I'm just.
About 100,000 to test it.
Okay, I'm just asking if the
No.
issue is the contamination, if a soil test has been done and then.
Not recently, no.
Do you have any quotes for remediation?
Just based on knowledge of past surrounding neighborhoods and people that I know that are in the service industry who are qualified and it ranges between 3 to 5. That was 20 years ago. Between 300,000 and 500,000. We're talking 20 years ago. It could be way more.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
those are all my questions, thank you.
Ms. Rempel, any questions?
I don't think I have any questions at this time. Oh, I do have one redirect to the assessor, if I may.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you could tell me, do you have any information about the average percentage that assessments have gone up in this neighborhood for businesses such as these?
As a whole, no. So it really depends. Again, it's hard because some of them could have the changes prior to.
On average,
On
do they
average,
go up? Do they go down?
it depends. It really does depend by each property, not the neighborhood as a whole or the street as a whole. It depends. Some could have had renovations, some could have, certain things could have happened where potentially there was a lower value, depending if there was any appeals previously and any board orders or agreements that were made before, even if I had an average, it would be hard to gauge because there could be so many different reasons why the changes in the assessment.
So it's not part of your model. This was based on your model, was it?
No, from my understanding, it's not as the neighborhood. It is more subjective to the property. But it does take outside sources into consideration when we're developing it. But for the area of Corden, as far as I know, we're not taking a certain average into consideration. Like solely, part of it potentially, but other than that, I don't know entirely what all the model took into consideration for this specific one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
Yeah, just back to these benzene levels. So you're saying that the benzene levels are too high and that you cannot uh, do anything there until you get rid of the benzene, pretty much. Is that pretty much what we're saying?
No, no, like, I have a building there. But
Okay.
I'm not allowed to excavate. So if I wanted to build a structure of 3 stories, which is allowed, I think it's 36 feet. I would have to excavate in order to justify the foundation for 3 stories. I wouldn't be able to do it unless I did the remediation, which would be remove it.
Could you put a flat building on there without digging out?
No. Oh,
No. Okay, so can I ask the assessor a question now?
Yes,
So you're on page 10, where it says Warren Rospad from Manitoba Conservation. By today's standards, based on the 94 readings, the subject site would not be above the guidelines and would pass all current standards. So he wouldn't have to do what he's saying?
I can't answer that with certainty. Unfortunately, I don't know what all would be involved. I do know that there was the permit taken out to do the addition. If Mr. Bishop decided to not go through with it for costs, I didn't hear if he mentioned if it was part of the levels that was part of the cost that made him not go through with it. But as far as I know from that letter, my interpretation of it is that the levels are fine. It is leased out. It's not a vacant building sitting there.
Mhm.
can I say one thing here? The levels have always been fine. I've been able to put a building there. I'm not talking about the fact that I can't put a building there, but if I was to sell it, if somebody wanted to actually tear it down and put condos in there, they would have to do remove the earth.
Okay, so
Contaminated underneath, so the soils are migrating, or the contamination is still migrating. So once you disturb the land, then you're responsible to clean it up, basically.
So, Mr. Bishop, if you don't touch the land and you leave the property as it is right now, you could sell it.
Only with a disclosure telling them that the land is contaminated, yeah.
And what value do you think your land is only worth $399, $362 with this site as it sits right today?
Well, if you go to a bank and ask them what it's worth, they'll tell you what, it's only worth what I paid for it. And that was $100,000 for the land and whatever I put into it. That's all it's worth.
And what year did you purchase that land?
In 2002, which.
So you knew that issue was there at that time because this issue came out in 1994.
I knew it was contaminated, but I didn't, at the time, I didn't realize what I had bought, because I didn't even know there was a liability issue until I actually got a copy of that paper telling me that my liability issues have changed.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been sued, not even knowing it. And
Why did you not build a basement then? Why did you not?
Well, I knew it was contaminated.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no, I knew it was contaminated. That was why I couldn't build a basement.
Mhm.
Because I would have had to, as soon as you disturb the land, you have to remove the soil. And it has to be put in containers.
So you think you
And
should
it's
only
just
be,
$300
you
to
think you
$500.
should then only be paying taxes on basically $400,000 a year on the value of this property?
Well, I think my rental, my ARV, like what I'm getting for rent, justified.
Which is roughly $400,000 is what you came out with, $399, $362.
Yeah, yes, I do.
So if you were to sell the property today, you would sell it for less than that.
I'm not selling it.
If you were to sell it,
Well, I could sell it for anything I wanted, but try to get whatever I wanted to, but I would have to disclose it's contaminated.
Okay, thank you.
You would have to figure out, what do you think?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. All I can tell you is what the bank told me.
Okay.
The bank
Oh,
told me.
sorry, when was the last time you checked with the bank?
I don't owe money on the land.
When was the last time you went to the bank to see if you could get a financing on that property?
When did I go to the bank?
Yes,
I'm not financing it though.
but you said the
Well, I
bank.
don't know, I don't know, I did my home, I financed my home.
Okay, so you've never been to the bank on this property then?
I've been to the bank once, yeah. And that was the remaining balance of, when I purchased the land, so.
So that's back 20 years ago. You've never been back to the bank since?
Yeah, I've used the land as a collateral, but that's about it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On page 39, I don't know what page it is on your papers there, your lease agreements.
Yeah,
You got Spa Botanica there. This is one tenant, 1,104 square feet they're renting out, correct?
yes,
And there's another tenant?
yeah,
So why didn't you put that down in here?
because I got the, what is it called, you guys sent me, the income,
Income and expense.
income and expense thing, they sent to the wrong address. And this is the second time they've done it. And when I received that, it was a day before I had to hand it in, and I was in Bird River, Manitoba. So that was the only.
Well, I'm not talking about the income and expense mailer. I'm just
Oh,
talking
okay.
about who's renting your property right now.
Oh, because I was basing it on the average rental value. The rental I'm getting per square foot, they're very similar.
No, I'm not asking about that.
Oh, what are you asking about?
Who is renting out the property right now?
I have
Two tenants?
2 tenants here.
Two tenants, okay. So you have Spa Botanica there, number one, you have it listed.
And and Willow Tree Service. Or, how do they call them? Yeah, Willow Tree Service.
Willow Tree Service, they're both there, and how much are they paying a month, each of them?
Well, the spa is, I just, renewed their, lease this month. They're paying me $2,600, that's gross. But then I have my taxes are 500 from that unit. There's the management fees, the CMA, and then I did some alterations for them. And I included that into the rental too.
Okay, so how much are they netting net then for you?
It, I got it on the piece of paper.
Oh, yeah, sorry, it's 1,204 you got here? You got snow clearing grants, is that what it is?
So I did that, like I didn't have the lease agreement in front of me, so I did that and drove back to drop it off, so I could get it in time because it's happened to me before. And I've wrote on there, as you can see, that this is the second time they did this to me, and I told them that I've changed the address before. It's almost like they want me to miss it, the deadline for something.
Okay, just if you can just bear with me. I'm just trying to get at an answer to my question. What is the other tenant paying? And you have net rent from Spa Botanica here of $1,204 a month. Okay,
I don't have that in front of me, so I can't tell you. I don't know.
well, that's what you have. Page
What?
30. Yeah. Okay. So you must have written that out, right?
Oh, for the spa, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what is the other tenant paying?
I don't have the lease agreement in front of me. It works out to. I think it's $15 a square foot.
$15 a square foot.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Yeah.
Anything in summation, Ms. Flood?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Mr. Bishop, anything in summation?
No, I just kind of wish you would have allowed me to use all my evidence. I think it would have played an important part in your decision making. I would respect the board to look into the contamination when you make your decision, because it's getting tired. I'm getting tired of always arguing the fact that I have to argue that it's contaminated, and the city assessors never, and I'm not taking anything away from the assessor, but when they just say guidelines, they don't really specify what it is, and I'm trying to explain to you what it is, but it doesn't seem like you're really taking my word. So maybe it would be in your interest to phone them and find out.
Who are you speaking to right now?
The board?
Find out about the contamination? Is that what you're saying? That
Yeah.
we should find out about it?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, in the assessor's evidence, it's very, it doesn't really give you details of the guidelines. It just says guidelines, doesn't tell you what the remedy is. The guidelines that I know are, was the liability issue, was the criteria changing from the 3 to the 2. And I took the liability issues away from you, and that's all it did. The soil is still contaminated. It doesn't nullify the contamination. It's the liability.
Mhm. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that then concludes item number 1, 1459 Corridon. And that is all the items on properties today in this hearing, and it is now adjourned. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Ms. Flood and Mr. Bishop, for your presentations.
Thank you very much.
I'll take us offline, Mr. Chair.
Well, just some future appeals. If I can't use comparables, then how do I argue my stats here?